Welcome to the She Can Achieve podcast, your destination for women's empowerment. I'm Regina Sloan, your host and life coach. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories and practical advice to help you thrive in every area of your life. I want you to listen with this question in mind, though. How can this be applied to my journey? Every episode is packed with gems if you're looking for them. Thanks for being here. Let's go. Hello. How are you doing? I hope that, when you listen to this, it'll be August, but we're at the end of July, and I just hope that it's treating you well. We are wrapping up the summer, y'all. Summer 2024 is getting ready to be done. It's so interesting. We are getting into shifting back into school. We homeschool our younger too, and so really looking into what this year will look like and making some pivots. And it is very interesting, very confusing, kind of scary too, and just of the unknowns, and also the need to make decisions and my brain wanting to spin in decision because, our brain likes to know that, there's a right and perfect one. And so I personally have been dealing with that. So that's very interesting. But otherwise, I am enjoying the summer. We are planning our probably last camping trip. Well, we'll take two. One at the beginning of September, one at the end. So that's going to be fun. We have had a full summer so far, constantly doing things, constantly in the streets. And I've truly enjoyed it. I really, really have. I have not only spent lots of time with family, but I've also spent time with friends, and I've also made lots of time for myself. So I'm very proud of myself for that. At the beginning of the summer, I wanted to have a really beautiful balance to where I didn't end the summer thinking, damn, I overworked. I didn't spend time with this person or that person, or I really just played too much and did not show up. I truly did do or create a balance. I say balance with air quotes for sure, because I don't think there's ever a 100% equal balance in anything, really. So there's that. So I hope that your summer has been going well, and I hope that it's wrapping up well. And if you're listening to this and you are thinking, dang, I wanted to do this or I wanted to do that, do not allow your brain to overwhelm you. Take some time today and decide, what do you want the rest of the summer to look like? Right? What are those couple of things that you want to ensure that you do with your loved ones, with yourself, and just put them on a calendar and get it done. Don't allow your brain to talk about how it's too late and you sucked and you didn't do what you said you were going to do. Just decide right now, what do I want to do, and go and do it. Okay? Now, major pivot. Today we're going to be talking about emotions. And there is a million things probably that I could talk about, but today I specifically want to talk about how emotions are on our side always. And this, I think, is going to be so powerful. It has been some of the most powerful work I have experienced myself. And the reason why I'm talking about it today, I have decided to talk about it in this episode, is because in the past couple of weeks, I feel like every coaching call that I've had, it has come up. And the more I delve into service, the more I evolve as a person individually, the more I understand how deeply connected our emotions are to everything. And on the opposite spectrum, the more I see how disconnected most of us are. So I have been reflecting on this, and I am going to talk today about how emotions are on our side always. Always, always, always. So we know that many of us, most of us, a very great portion of us, did not have the most healthy experience around emotions as children. And there's many reasons for that, right? One, our caretakers just simply did not have the tools. It is what it is, right? We understand that. Two, the science wasn't even there. 30 years ago, there weren't all these children's books around emotions and how it's better to talk about them and get them out. Like, I was reading a book about that tonight with my children. And so we have so many resources now, right? Like, even with the internet, 30 years ago, there was no internet. Now You can just simply ask ChatGPT about an emotion. You can go online anywhere and learn about them. So there are so many different reasons why this is the case. But nonetheless, this is what most of us have experienced, that our caretakers did not have the tools that were required in order to help us to have a healthy relationship with emotions. And so therefore we became people that didn't either. And I want you to think about it on a bigger scale too. You know, the TV shows that you were watching, your school, right? Your teachers, back then and still today, right? But it's less popular now, right? We have more opportunities where people are speaking out upon how, children should be able to speak up on how they feel. And it's okay for them to be angry and frustrated at you. And they should be able to talk about that and the importance of that, right? In most spaces, we understand this, even if we understand this intellectually, even if at home we're not really practicing this for many reasons. One being the inability to actually handle our own emotions, but we understand it. But it's important for us to understand why this is even an issue, where we don't understand our emotions and we simply may not even see them as on our side. And we have these thoughts around quote unquote negative emotions. And it's just because of what we were conditioned to believe and think about emotions. Most of us were in households where if you didn't have a positive emotion, then there was a problem. We were told in many ways, sometimes directly and sometimes subliminally, that our negative emotions, our sadness, our frustration, our confusion, irritation, annoyance, right, overwhelm, anxiety, right, all of it, there was no safe space for it. One way or another, we were given messages that it was simply not okay to display those. And I'm always talking to my clients around our past selves and how we can build love and compassion for that part of us that simply did what we had to do in order to remain safe, in order to survive. And if you think about that, if you think about how you are now, right, with emotions, maybe you shut them out, maybe you avoid them, maybe you react, right? Maybe you spaz out. Maybe you have no idea how to actually feel them and how to let them be there and how to be curious. And I'm going to show you how in a minute. We're going to talk about that. But I want you to think about where that came from, right? And especially if you are a person that beats yourself up about your past, the things you did before. And the past could be 20 years ago. It could be yesterday. Like, where is this coming from? And when I have learned to become curious and understand why I was showing up the way I was, it wasn't that I found it acceptable or this is just who I am. It just created so much self-compassion so that I could then move forward with curiosity and start to get to work with, okay, I understand how I'm showing up, that this served me to be safe at 7, at 10, at 14, at 15, what have you. And now I don't have to be in that space anymore. So what am I going to do differently? But it's very hard to do that if you're beating yourself up. Okay, that's for another podcast. So I said all that to say for you to make peace with however you have been showing up with your emotions. And that's going to be required in order for you to do the work, because beating yourself up and all those things, they just really perpetuate and create a cycle of the same thing. All right. So emotions are simply vibrations in our bodies that we can feel. They are created from the brain. We think a thought, an emotion is created. You think something positive, a positive emotion is created. You think something negative, a negative emotion is created. Now, I'm using positive and negatives because I know that's how we as a society, we define our emotions, right? But every emotion is on your side. And I also like to use positive and negative when I think of, because our emotions drive our actions. And so if I am experiencing negative emotion, I will not be taking lots of positive action. And what I mean by negative and positive is, what results does it create? And I'll give you some examples in a minute. So if it's creating a result that I don't want, I'm going to deem that a negative result, right? So that is how I am titling them, if you will. And so that's what an emotion is. It's simply just that. It can never actually physically harm you, but many of us are doing everything in the world to prevent from feeling them because we haven't learned anything else. Okay. And that's okay. What I want you to understand from this podcast and take away from here, if you take nothing else, it's this: your emotions are your friend and they are messengers. And if you simply take that and you believe that, you do the work to step into that and see how that is true, then every time you have an emotion, no matter what it is, you can step into curiosity to figure out what that message is. What is your emotion trying to tell you? Every emotion has a message. And so, for example, you may decide that, hey, I've been letting people walk all over me. I'm saying no more. I'm going to speak my truth. If it's a full body no, I'm just going to simply say that. I'm going to start standing up for myself, right? And say yes to things that serve me only. Okay. The moment someone asks you to do something, right, that you know is a no, and you have decided I'm going to say no, you're going to have negative emotion. Now, sidebar, anytime we do something new and different, we always have negative emotion. This is a normal thing. I'm going to do a podcast around this, around our expectations of how we think we should feel when we are taking new and different actions. But this is a normal thing for you to have a negative emotion when you're getting ready to do something new and different, because remember, that primitive part of your brain that wants you to remain safe sees this as dangerous. So the moment you decide you're going to do that, someone asks you a question, you want to say no, you know that you have decided to say no, you will immediately feel some kind of uncomfortable emotion, right? Probably anxiety. Maybe you might feel nervous, right? You may feel simply fear, like afraid, right? And in those moments, you would, if we're following what I'm talking about, you will get curious. What is this emotion trying to tell me? I had one coach, she had like this little green gremlin that she brought out and was like, she was talking about guilt at the time. Here's guilt. Like, I want you to actually see this emotion as a different thing, something outside of you, because it simply is. Like, if you got to grab a pen, if you have to grab whatever in your room when you're thinking, your room, your car, wherever you are, when you're doing this work, so that you can see it as something and like, okay, here is the anxiety. Say that's the emotion that comes up when you're like, I'm going to say no. And now you have the opportunity to say no, and it's new and different. And you feel anxiety. Like, I'm anxious. And so I want you to pause and like, okay, anxiety is here. It would be beautiful if you can feel it, if you can just sit with it and like feel it in your body, like get to where we have that mind and body connection. We can start to feel these emotions, right? And I want you to simply just lead with curiosity. That is an emotion. When we are curious, we feel that, like this leaning in energy. And I want you to lead with that and simply just ask, okay, here is anxiety. What do you want to tell me? What message do you want to let me know? And something will come up. I want you to listen without judgment, right? There are no wrong or right messages. So this message might be, they may not like you, right? They get upset. They might get mad. We don't want them to get mad. And I want you to really get clear on like, what is the message? What's happening? And from that space, then it's like, oh, okay, thank you so much, right? Because it's on your side. So to that part of your brain that's offering these thoughts and creating this emotion, it just wants to keep you safe. It doesn't want you to be rejected. It doesn't want people to be upset at you, right? It wants status quo, which is why you have said yes to many things before, right? And so we can hold space for that and give it an energetic hug. Like, thank you. I appreciate that. We can energetically push that anxiety aside, right? We're not avoiding it. We're not acting like it's not there. We have acknowledged that it's there. We've thanked it for its message. And then you shift into the higher evolved person, that part of you that wants to stop saying no, that knows why, knows your reasons and loves your reasons why you're transitioning into the person that says no if it's a no. And I want you to think about, how do you want to feel, right? That feeling might be empowered. It might even just be courageous, right? It takes a lot of courage to do something different. I like courage in this instance. So if you want to feel courageous in this moment, what do you need to believe in order to feel that way, right? It's like, I can get through this. I'm doing something different. It's kind of scary, and that's okay. I can say no in this moment. Your thought sentence, your emotion might be totally different from what I'm talking about. This is an example I want you to use. No matter what, you can insert any situation. And what we're simply doing is, okay, what emotion am I experiencing right now? What message is it trying to tell me? Because we're believing and knowing that it's on our side, so it has something to tell me. How can I show love and compassion to those messages and acknowledge, I hear you, thank you so much, and energetically put it to the side, and then decide intentionally and on purpose what we want to feel. What do we need to be believing in order to feel that? And allow that thought and that emotion to drive our actions. And so the difference here is we're not bulldozing over our emotions and acting like they're not there. When we do that, they don't go anywhere. We're not able to process them out. They get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? We are not acknowledging them. We know that they're there, but they simply don't get to drive the car. I tell my clients all the time, all of these emotions, fear, anxiety, overwhelm, whatever, they can all get in the car. But what emotion are you going to allow to drive? Because we have the opportunity as human beings to decide on purpose and with intention how we want to show up. So we wouldn't intentionally choose to allow anxiety to just start driving all over the place. It would be a hot mess, right? Have you seen Inside Out 2? Such a beautiful movie. But we understand anxiety. Like even in Inside Out 2, if you've seen that, and if you haven't, think about what I'm saying when you go and watch it. But if you've seen it, you remember how anxiety was just like, no, we got to fix this. Because anxiety was worried that she was going to be rejected. She was going to be alone. She wasn't going to have friends. Like it was just trying to fix the situation, right? It was on her side. It was on Riley's side the entire time, although it was making a whole hot mess of her life, right? And so love and compassion allows it to be there, allows it to not grow, because we're not avoiding it and acting like it's not there. And now it's this huge, gigantic thing. Then we get to decide intentionally who we want to be in those moments. Another example could simply be you just have been experiencing negative emotion. Sometimes this is kind of ran our life, right? Like life is 50-50. 50% of the time you're going to experience negative emotion. This is never about always feeling positive, right? But if you've not done any emotional work and you don't understand they're just a normal process, you're probably spending a lot of time making it an issue that you experience negative emotions. And then this is how we create even even more negative life experience of, negativity. So let's just say overwhelm is something that you're constantly feeling. You're constantly feeling overwhelmed. You got so much going on. You have schedules that you haven't put together. You're constantly running from one thing to another. Let's just say that's an example. There's not something specifically happening right now. You just are in this it feels like this constant state of negativity, and let's call it overwhelm. When you to pause, do the same thing. What is this feeling trying to tell me? And side note, again, if you don't know, if you can't put a name on the emotion, no problem, right? They're just words. I would much rather you be able to see, okay, I'm feeling negative right now. I'm feeling off. I'm not feeling joyous. And what is happening? And just pause and close your eyes if you can. And just get curious. What are you wanting me to know right now? Okay. And one might come up. You're simply doing too much. I've had that thought come to me. You're all over the place, right? I actually experienced, let me finish this thought and break this down. Then I'll tell you a personal experience of guilt that I had last week. So that's the message for you. It's like, thank you so much for telling me that. Or you can also have a thought that's like, we don't want you to forget those things. We don't, and I'm going to have that example when I talk about guilt. And you can assure that part of you like, I got this. But it's simply about being curious. You can do this any second, literally. When you're feeling negative emotion, I would love for you to do this every time. What is this trying to tell me? What is this trying? I want you to get so good at connecting with your body that you feel something negative, and then you're able to see what is the message, and then you hold love and compassion for that, and then you decide, like, what do you want to tell it, and how do you want to show up? So my example with guilt, I had switched up my schedule, and so last week I was working longer hours. And so to kind of try out like a different kind of schedule. And I was just feeling so down a couple of those days. And I practiced what I'm sharing with you and decided or was able to see that I felt guilty. I'm like, okay, here's guilt. Where is this coming from? Like, what message do you want to tell me? And immediately it was like, you can't forget your kids. We don't want you to forget them. We don't want you to forget about spending time with them. We want to make sure, just in many different ways, this was the message that I was getting. And I was able to hold loving compassion and understanding and acknowledge that. And I was able to then, like, it could be a total conversation. Like, I'm okay. I know what I'm doing. I've got time set aside to spend time with them. Thank you so much, but I will not spend time with them, right? I'm acknowledging this fear, this guilt. It's like, oh, you're not spending time with your kids. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing this intentionally. And I've also intentionally created time to spend with them. And I was able to feel it, acknowledge it, right? Respond back to it, right? And then decide intentionally how I want to feel in those moments, because guilt was causing me not to even get things done. And I set aside these 5 hours to get things done, and I'm feeling guilty. And so now I'm not even doing anything. I'm scrolling, I'm eating, I'm walking around just finding things to do around the house. I'm like, I should probably just pick them up. Like, I'm not even doing the things that I set aside to do. So that higher part of me that knows that I have this, I know I'm not going to forget about my kids. I know it's so important, right? I know that I'm going to spend time with them, but I've intentionally created time right now to work on my business. And so I'm thinking, okay, how do I want to feel? I want to feel focused. That's what I wanted to feel in those moments. What do I have to believe in order to allow this guilt to be there and acknowledge that it's there, but still feel focused and allow that emotion to drive the car for me? And for me, that thought was, I know what I'm doing. I've created this schedule to create more time with them and be focused in my business, to serve them and to be a mom at the highest capacity. And so I tapped into that, and that took over. And that's what allowed me to continue on with those hours and create a hell of a lot of value, right? And so that's an example that I just used last week. This is something simple that you can begin to use today. And again, what I want you to take away from this episode is that your emotions are always on your side. They are simply wanting to share a message with you. And if it's a negative emotion, nothing has gone wrong. You will always experience negative emotion. Let's get curious and figure out what that emotion is trying to tell us. And let's decide how we want to feel on purpose without bulldozing or avoiding those emotions. We want them to be seen and heard and cared for, right? And then decide intentionally how we want to be moving forward. That's it for today. I will see you next time. Hey girl, thanks for tuning in. If you love this and you want to take this work deeper, definitely reach out to me and let's schedule your free 1-hour consult. We will dive deep into everything you have going on, where you are, where you want to be, and clearly how I can help you get there. Super simple, no obligation, only space for deep transformation. I would love to hear from you. I'll leave my email in the show notes and also links where you can connect with me on social. Be blessed, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.